Today is July 23rd, 2013. We're sitting with Mr. David Colt, and it is about 3:15.
All right. Thanks for coming in. We really appreciate it, by the way.
Sure.
But yeah, if you don't mind starting with where you were born.
Sure. Well, I was born in Craig in 1935
Okay.
in a house on, I should know the name of the street. Maybe it's the first street west of Yampa Avenue in a lady's home. She was Mrs. Eyrick, Conway Eyrick's mother. She was obviously a midwife. She wasn't a registered nurse, and I don't know the doctor's name. I'm sure his name is on the birth certificate somewhere.
Okay.
We lived on a ranch out in Axel Basin at the time, and we lived there, and then a couple of years till we were collectively starving to death.
Wow.
There were 5 kids, and it was the middle of the Depression,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a marginal ranch, to say the best about it.
Right.
It was plenty big enough, but not terribly productive ever. And so my mother, I think, finally said to my dad, we're going to go to town, and you're going to get a job in town, and we'll have a better life.
Mm-hmm.
And my oldest sister, who was 13, there were 5 kids from 13 down to me, and my oldest sister was getting ready to come to high school, or maybe even 9th grade, and so it was an opportune time to come to Craig. And my dad came to Craig and ran for county assessor and lost, and then he became the deputy treasurer in the treasurer's office at the courthouse.
Okay.
The treasurer was a man by the name of James, and Chester James, I think it was. And then my dad, when Chester James, who was also the head of Company A National Guard in this armory, actually, at the time when the war started, then Chet James had to take Company A, 157th Infantry, and all go to service. And so then my dad became the acting treasurer in the office, and then he became county treasurer and won. I don't know, he was elected, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 times, I can't remember. In those days, the term of office at county treasurer was 2 years when he first started, so he had to be elected every 2 years. Anyway, he was in the county treasurer's office for, I think, 26 or 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it's the record of any county official here. And so, because of that, Jack and Kaylin, Kathleen, because of that, because depression and then war, you jump from one thing to another. Those are the two obviously most influential things in a guy's life. You're a little kid during the Depression, and you're still a little kid kind of during the war, so you have that as an influence. And since my dad was a county official and a member of a particular political party, I don't need to get into that, but politics became very important to me, because I knew he had to win for us to have a job, for him to have a job and live in town.
Right.
And so it was fortuitous that he was elected. He was a very good man and a popular man in the city. And used to have a nice picture of him out here as a part of a display. I think it was, I can't remember why, but he was the original member of the hospital board when they built the Memorial Hospital. He was the treasurer on that, and he was an active civic guy. He was a good small town citizen,
Right.
and well thought of for many, many, many years. So he had a good reputation. And that was 1935 to 45. That was a quick life there. See, depression into the Second World War. Yeah.
And what were your earliest memories of Craig? What did Craig look like?
Well, earliest memories, I remember going to the cemetery with my mother and standing on that rocky old dry point up there and looking at the graves, and they were, even in those days, ancient, and that's now 70 years ago. So those grave sites, the very, very earliest ones are real relics, and the cemetery, however, looks better than it ever has.
Okay.
They pour a lot of water on it out there now, and it's a good small community cemetery, actually. My other memories, obviously, going to, there were two theaters, two movie houses in Craig, I think at the time. One was the Craig Theater, and then there was the West Theater, and the Craig Theater burned down in 1946, but I can remember going to movies. I think the tickets were 15 cents to go to the Craig Theater on a Saturday afternoon, and you could see a double feature for 15 cents, and a short, too, or Perils of Pauline, I think they were called, shorts that were black and white things. I don't know the first Technicolor movie I ever saw, I really don't. Well, of course, The Wizard of Oz was in color, and that was like 1941 or 2, 40, I was 41 or 2, and so movies were a big thing.
Okay.
If you had 15 cents.
Right. What else would you do for recreation when you were young?
Oh, my best friend was a guy by the name of Sidney, and we pronounced it in those days Sidney Sather. His dad ran a jewelry store, Howard Sather's Jewelry. Sid still is a good friend now after 70 years, although they now pronounce that name Sather. And I think they may do that because they have they've discovered that maybe in Norway that is the pronunciation, and as you two Californians know, that gate up at Berkeley, that gate on the campus at the University of California, Berkeley, do you?
I know.
Famous gate in the campus area. It's called Sather Gate, and it's spelled S-A-T-H-E-R, Sather. So Sid Sather, when I was a little tiny guy, he now pronounces that name Sather, and he has a wonderful jewelry store. They've been in that business for more than 100 years, the Sather family, and he has a wonderful jewelry store in Fort Collins now, and is still in the business. So, being friends with Sid was a big deal. He lived across the street, and we were very close friends. And fun was going to the Sand Rocks with Sid.
Right.
And I will tell you a quick story here. It's like 1942 or thereabouts, and Sid and I decided to go to the Sand Rocks. We had been to the Sand Rocks to play many times. We got up to the Sand Rocks, and we looked across towards the west, and you could see the Great Divide Road at that time. And Sid knew that his grandparents had a place out on the Great Divide Road. And you guys have seen the Sand Rocks up there.
Yeah.
They come to an end, out onto the west part of Craig there. And we got to the end of the rocks, and Sid suggested that we go out, walk through the sagebrush, for good rattlesnake country, and walk through the brush to get to Great Divide Road, and then walk out Great Divide Road to his grandparents' place. I don't know, it was a ranch. They had a house out on the Great Divide Road there. They had wonderful names. They were his mother's parents, and they were, I hope you get Sid over here and get get him to do this. He would come to Craig to do that for you. They were Mammy and Pappy East. Mammy and Pappy because they were Southern people.
Right.
Yeah, so we got over to the Great Divide Road and started walking up the Great Divide Road, and of course it was a hot summer day, and we were getting kind of tired going towards Great Divide, and here came a Texaco delivery truck, and one of the Beckett boys, I'm sure it was Don or Arnold Beckett, picked us up and brought us back to town. And, of course, neither Sydney's folks nor my parents knew where we were. They knew we were gone and out of sight, and it had amounted now to maybe 2 or 3 hours we were gone. And so in those days, they used to have the irrigation ditch up here filled with water in the summertime. There was a dam on Fortification Creek, and just half-mile north of town, or a quarter of a mile really, north of the high school there was a dam, and they would use that dam to get water in the irrigation ditch that then came along and wiggled its way through the north side of town out towards an alfalfa patch that was owned by a woman by the name of Cully Walsh. And they irrigated well. It was full of water, irrigation water. And so Howard Sather, Sydney's dad, got frantic, and he wanted to have the ditch dragged. Yeah, he thought maybe 2 little boys had fallen in the irrigation ditch and had drowned, see? So he was going to have the guys, whatever, the volunteer fire department or somebody come and drag the ditch. Well, along about that time, the Beckett guy, the Beckett's are an old family here for, have you got to come across any names of Beckett?
I interviewed Bettina Magus was my first one, and her maiden name was Beckett.
Her maiden name was Beckett. And her first name is what?
Bettina?
Bettina. Yeah, she would be Vic's daughter. Vic's daughter, okay, well, it would have been her uncle that picked us up, 2 little boys. Sydney was a blonde-haired Norwegian, and I was a red-headed kid, and so we needed to get out of the sunshine, and Beckett did that for us. And then Howard Sather, Sid's dad, didn't have to drag the ditch.
Right.
Okay, so we made it home. That's a memory. And I do hope you get Sid to verify that, although I'm not so sure Sid would remember it. I'm about 10 months older than Sid, so he was a little kid at that time. And I'll start again here on memories. That's what you want, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, that was Jack. My memories, I was always in trouble.
Okay.
Constantly.
That's how a lot of my memories go.
Is that right?
Yes.
Good.
I have 4 little brothers,
Yeah.
so we were always in trouble.
Oh, did you get whipped with a horse quirt?
No.
Do you know what a horse quirt is?
No.
I hope you never have to find out. Do you know what a horse quirt is? Okay. Well, that was what my dad would grab, and I grew up experiencing a horse quirt stinging on the back of my legs, and it dawned on me at some point in my life that he didn't do it enough. Yeah. Today they would put him in jail, of course, for child abuse, but he was a gentle, good man, and he didn't overdo it. And that's kind of a joke, Jack. It should have been more frequently applied, the horse quirt on the back of this red-headed kid's butt.
Okay.
And so memories. I'll answer questions. How about that?
Yeah, that's fine. Well,
Okay.
what I wanted to ask you first was, what we wanted to ask is, what was school like?
School.
Yeah.
Here's a joke. Jack. The joke is, I never had a teacher that didn't want to just beat the hell out of me. I never had a teacher. Maybe my first grade teacher, Miss Tabler, who married a Knez guy here and had a big family of kids. Maybe Miss Tabler in the first grade didn't want to beat me, but she might have had that thought too. Bill Rippey was one of my classmates in the first grade. You would talk to him, and one day I remember in first grade, Bill brought his little brother to a party in the first grade at the Yampa school. I even remember what room we had, and his little brother, Larry, we all got in a line and were maybe to some kind of music going around, and his little brother was sitting in a chair, and he would try to trick guys as they went around and laugh, and Bill laughed about that too. In the second grade, I had a lady who the story was kept a rubber hose in the closet, and we all knew what the closet was, the teacher's coat closet right there in the room. And the story was there was a rubber hose in there. I never saw it, and I don't even think she really had a rubber hose, but she would have happily kept that rumor circulating to keep little second graders in line, and she did. Keep us in line, and I was terrified of her, Her name was Mamie Haglund, Haglund, Mamie Haglund, and I thought she was ancient, but she wasn't so ancient that she didn't get a husband after my second grade year, and she became Mrs. Deming, Deming, D-E-M-M-I-N-G, I guess it was. Mamie Haglund became Mamie Deming, and I know I had her in the third grade too, regrettably. But at the end of my second grade, and I swear this is true, Jack, at the last day of school, I had a classmate by the name of Bobby Crosswaite, C-R-O-S-T-H-W-A-I-T-E, C-R-O-S-T-H-W-A-I-T-E, Bobby Crosswaite, and he was as cute as a button, as the saying goes. He was adorable, and everybody loved Bobby Crosswaite. He was a little tiny guy.
Someone just came in, Jen. I'll be right back.
Okay. Shall I continue?
Yes.
Okay. Well, at the end of the school, true story, my second grade year, I was waiting around with Bobby because we were going to walk home together, and Bobby went up and gave Mamie Haglund a goodbye kiss. And I can remember to this day thinking, how can you do that, Bobby? How can you kiss that old lady, you know? But he did, and later on I found out at a class reunion, another classmate by the name of Della Fisk said, well, you know why, don't you? She said, Bobby always went up and sat on Miss Haglund's lap to read and during the course of the year, and I'd kind of forgotten that. But so then, that was my second grade year, and I had her again in my third grade year. However, in my third grade, my mother, it was 1943, the summer of 1943, and they needed a teacher out of a school called Wattle Creek that Dan Davidson knows very well. And so they hired my mother as a teacher to go teach the school at Wattle Creek, which is about 20-some miles from Craig. And she would live in the teacher age. And in 1943, see, you didn't run from Craig out and teach a day and then come back. You went out and lived in the teacher age. And so it was one-room country school. my mother had started her teaching career in a one-room country school, and so they were kind of happy to get her, but she needed somebody to stay with her, so she took me as a third grader, and so she taught me how to read finally in the third grade, and that school ended at the end of December or at Christmas time in 1943, and then we came back to town, and I finished out the rest of the third grade with Mamie, and by that time she was Mamie Deming, and I can remember one day in class, Mamie asked me to get up to read, and I got up kind of, and I read as best I could, and I can remember she said to the rest of the class, David has learned how to read, and because I hadn't read at all in the second grade, but my mother had taken the time to kind of teach me how to read, so in a few months I could read a little bit, and that was the third grade.
Wow. What do you remember about so you attended the country school that your mother taught at?
Well, sure. I remember many things about it. It was wonderful. Country kids. Dan Davidson's mother was an 8th grader. I was in the 3rd grade. His auntie was in the 8th grade, too. There were about, 10 or 12 kids, maybe. I could name some of them, but I don't need to. It was a great experience to go to a one-room country school. Not many people have been members of one-room country schools, but I enjoyed it. And then, as I say, at Christmas time, then they closed that school up, and we came back to town. And I was in the Amp Avenue School, the rest of grade school.
Sorry about that.
Sure, it's all right.
Pete Pleasant says hello.
Who did?
Pete Pleasant.
Oh, Pete. Oh, and you talked to Pete, right?
We did. His interview was the one that accidentally got erased.
Oh, is that right?
He just stopped by and asked to reschedule, that's why.
Okay, good. Yeah.
He said hello.
Good. Tell Peter hello.
Yeah, so I just heard you went to a one-room country school.
Right.
You did enjoy that experience.
Yes. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, everybody should go to a one-room country school sometime in their life. I know it doesn't exist anymore. As a matter of fact, I don't think there are any more in Colorado. I don't know when the last one closed up. But yeah, that was the 3rd grade. And then back to grade school, and teachers, and I could name them, but you don't need to have the names, do you?
Whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah, no, it's all right. What about the 5th grade? A nice teacher, that was at the end of the war, I guess. And 3 girls came here from, I don't know where, the west somewhere, and one taught 6th grade, one 4th, and one 5th. And I had one of the 2 sisters, that's a 5th grade teacher, and her name was Verna Werner, W-E-R-N-E-R, and she discovered that she could maybe get me to stop talking or whatever it was. My problem was, I really don't, that was before ADD, that was before ADHD. They didn't know those letters. They just knew that this kid, this little red-headed kid, needed to be watched carefully or shut up or smacked, or in the case of my 5th grade teacher, and then later on my 6th grade teacher, they would take my individual student desk, and the teacher sat here, and they would put me right here, right there, where they maybe could reach me. All of the rest of the class, Jack, sat in regular rows, but not me. not in the 5th grade or the 6th grade. Miss Warner's good friend, his name was Hockett, taught the 6th grade, and she did the same thing. She knew I was coming, so by the time, I think she started quickly in the 6th grade and moved my desk up away from everyone else. So I sat right by the teacher's desk, and I wasn't smart enough to be embarrassed by it. I thought it was kind of making me special. One day my sister, who was a real pretty high school junior at the time and thinking about becoming a teacher, she and some of her friends, who were also thinking about becoming teachers, came to visit from the high school, which was right over here, doesn't exist anymore. They went to the grade school on Yamp Avenue to visit the classes. They came into the 6th grade. My pretty sister by the name of Mary Carroll came in, and with 2 or 3 of her friends, and I wasn't, Jack and Kathleen, I wasn't smart enough to be embarrassed. I thought it was cute that there I was sitting up next to the teacher, and my sister came in to observe the class, and later on some of the other kids said, well, that was David's sister, and Miss Hockett said, oh, she's really pretty, and she was pretty. That was the 6th grade. So then in the 7th and 8th, in those days, 7th and 8th graders went over to the high school building, where the high school was from the senior high down through what they call junior high, but in the same building. That was 7th grade. And then they finished the new high school, which is the yellow brick thing on Yamp, way up north there on Yamp Avenue. And then when I was in 8th grade, they took the high school kids and put them in the new building, and that left 8th and 7th, and then they moved 5th and 6th grades into that building. So it was 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th all in the old School Street building, the old high school building. And they did that for quite a while. And then, in the past, 20 or 25 years, they've decided that, 9th graders should be in middle school, as you guys know probably. And so now high school only consists, and I'm wrong on that, because now they've moved 9th graders back to high school, haven't they? So, in some systems, So that was in the high school years, 1949 to 1953.
And what did you want to do after high school?
Well, I had a kind of a fantasy that I would be a wheat farmer in the summertime and teach school in the wintertime. Even though teachers were not fond of me, I thought teaching would be a neat thing. And since my mother was a teacher, and since I grew up during the war, history became a kind of an interesting thing for me. Because my family kept the old Coles Ranch that goes back more than 100 years, my dad started to get into the wheat raising stuff along about the time I was a sophomore, so in high school maybe. And so I thought, well, it would be a good idea to maybe be a wheat farmer and teach history during the winter time. And so that was what my thought was, and I kind of pursued that. We still have the wheat ranch out there, although now they don't raise wheat on it. It's in a government program called the CRP program, a Conservation Reserve program, and you get a little government pittance to leave your ground fallow or to raise grass. And so that's what's going on nowadays.
Do you know when that started for your farm, for your family's farm? The farm subsidies?
Oh, yeah, well, like 1990, was it?
Oh, okay.
Maybe a little bit before that. CRP program, do you know when
When they
it's
started, I can't remember, felt like that.
late 80s or early 90s? Nick Charchalis was farming out there at the time, and so then they put all that ground into CRP.
Right.
Yeah. So then I did go to college and
Okay.
became a teacher.
Where did you attend college?
Well, I went to Mesa State, Mesa Junior College for a year. Now it's Mesa, Colorado Mesa Western University or something like that. They call it a university now, but it was a junior college in 1953, 60 years ago this year, down there. And then a school today it's called Northern Colorado University, University of Northern Colorado, maybe UNC, and got a degree there, met a girl there and got married, and we had almost 52 years together, and then she got cancer and she died about a year and a half ago. So,
Sorry to hear that.
thank you. Sure. Yeah, it's something you learn to cope with, obviously, or you can't cope at all. Yeah.
Where is University of Northern Colorado?
It's at Greeley, Colorado.
It's at Greeley.
Yeah, Greeley.
And what made you both decide to come back to Craig?
Well, they had a job. I had a good friend, another good friend, graduated from high school with me by the name of Dino Avgeras, 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 Greek name. And Dino he was a better student and had graduated from college a year ahead of me. And he got a job in Craig teaching at Sunset Elementary, taught a 4th grade class. And in the summer of 1959, after I had graduated, my wife had also graduated in 1959, my wife-to-be had graduated, she went to her hometown of Omaha to teach, and I came back to Craig, and I made some attempts to get a job at Hayden or here and there, and I didn't get a response on my applications. So then they needed another 4th grade teacher in Craig, and there was a real good guy by the name of Ken Schoonover, who was the superintendent of schools, and he had been pleased with the way Dino, my friend Dino, had taught 4th grade, and Ken knew that I was looking for a job, and so Ken told Dino, he said, well, have Dave Coles come in and apply for the other 4th grade position at Sunset Elementary. So I did that, and lo and behold, they gave me a job. And so that was a 4th grade, and that's when I had a little tiny nice girl by the name of Janet Van Dorn. And
that was in your first year of teaching?
That was my first year of teaching, that's right. Poor little kids. Here was this guy who had never taught. He hadn't been in a 4th grade classroom since he was a 4th grader. but they put him in there, and with Dino's help and a good guy who was the school principal and had patience enough to deal with me and help me along a little bit. And I had 32 years as a school teacher.
Wow.
Well, you say wow now, Jack, but wait till you're getting close to 80 years old, and it won't be so wow. It'll be, that's all you'll say, well, that's all you did? Yeah, that's pretty much all I did.
That's great.
Well, it's all right, sure.
Starting my first year this year.
Yeah. Well, we taught, my wife and I were married in December of '59, and then she came to Craig, and she had, according to Ken Schoonover, the best resume that he'd ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, she was a good student, and she was wonderful, and he was terribly impressed with her. So he was happy to see us get married and have me bring Pat, my wife, to Craig, and then so she started teaching in Craig in January of 1960, and we taught here together for 3 years through 1962. And then we went to Washington, D.C. I wanted to go get a graduate degree, so we went back to D.C. and I went to American University back in D.C. and got a graduate degree, and Pat taught in McLean, Virginia. And then we taught in District of Columbia. I taught there in high school in the district for 3 years in the early 60s, 63 to 66, and those were the years before the revolution in America that changed a lot of things in America. So Washington, D.C. was a good system to teach in, and I was in a good high school that became, by the time I left there, it became probably 90% black kids, African American they're called today, but in those days they were called Negro, of course, Negro to black to African American, and so today it's obviously 100%. It became that after I left there in '66, and then we both got jobs. My wife and I got jobs in Littleton, Colorado, and we taught there, which is a suburb of Denver, Jack.
Right. Then jobs in those. And how long were you in Littleton?
Well, 26 years.
So,
and
okay, so
and
you
in
stayed
one high
there.
school
Okay.
called Arapahoe High School. 26 years in that one high school. And it's as good as almost any high school in Colorado. Their record, their test scores are always number 1 or 2 or 3 in the state. It's suburban high school and upper middle class, and it's a great high school. So I had a satisfactory, pleasing 26 years actually, although kids did start to change in the 1980s especially, and by 1992 I realized after 26 years there that it was time for me to retire, so I took an early retirement. Although 32 years in teaching was plenty, I retired at the age 56, and that's 21 years ago. Now see, I'm 77, so and soon to be 78. But it was a good high school. As I hope Orange County Fine Arts,
School of the Arts.
School of Fine Arts. Is it a public high school?
It is.
Is it really?
It is a public high school.
Orange County. Well, see, Orange County is the equivalent, obviously, of Centennial, Littleton, Highlands Ranch area of Denver. Highlands Ranch now, which is a little further to the south, is now the probably the primo area to live in that part of the metropolitan area. And their schools are just super. As a matter of fact, there's a school out there in Highlands Ranch called Christian. a Christian, it's a private school, but connected to the Christian church some way. Just fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, money, well, you know, like $15,000 a year tuition for kids. Oh yeah, super expensive place to go.
That's more than we pay a year tuition for college.
It would be equivalent. Well, some schools, of course, go more, but yeah, you mean at Long Beach State? Yeah, Long Beach State or University. Yeah, well, that's but the school in Highlands Ranch is a private school.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a fabulous place. So that was my life.
Yeah, it's a fascinating life. Did you? Over the years, maybe not how often did you return to Craig, but when you returned to Craig, what were things that you noticed were changing?
Of course, when the coal, as you heard, when the coal people came here with the big development in the middle 70s, that has had a huge effect on Craig. You know, when I lived here, Jack, the population of Craig was a little over 3,000 people.
Right.
And now it's, you know, in the whole area here is 9,000 or 10,000, you know.
Right.
And that's largely because of the development. Craig, you know, really, folks, after the Second World War, with the oil development here, Craig always had kind of interesting people who would move here after the Second World War, and a few of them stayed for periods of time. Many of them came and had their kids in the school for 1 or 2 years, and then they moved on. And I become aware of that when I go down and look at the pictures of the high school graduating classes down there, and you see and you think, oh my gosh, yeah, the Rand family. I wonder where they went, what kind of life they had. They were only here 2 years, and the kids were great kids and attractive, good-looking kids, and here and gone, you know. But Craig has had that kind of a reputation. A lot of people don't want to live in Craig because the winters can be atrocious.
Yeah.
Now, the other day I noticed in the Denver Post, the hottest place in the state was Craig, Colorado. 97 degrees, the hottest place not in the United States, but in the state of Colorado. I had never seen that, but I have seen many times when Craig was the coldest place in the state, or sometimes, true enough, the coldest place in the nation can be Craig, Colorado. So a lot of people didn't want to stay in Craig, although their jobs moved them to Craig. They came here for a few years and moved on. So I've noticed that as a major change. But Craig is a much better small town, little city than it ever was, you know. Although the downtown hasn't thrived. You know,
a lot of businesses leaving.
Well, businesses, yeah, and then of course fire took out stuff here south of the Armory, took out 3 or 4 old business structures, and that was too bad to lose them. So the downtown has not thrived like some places. Steamboat Springs, have you been up to Steamboat?
Yes.
Yeah, well, Steamboat's downtown, you know, simply is pretty lovely, you know, flowers, tremendous job, and attractive businesses. And of course, since it's a tourist place, lots of art stores and that kind of stuff. And Craig has never done that. It would be nice if Craig did do that.
Yeah.
So it's, I come over here quite a bit because I've got to go back out to the ranch right today. our kind of partner, Nick Charchalis, is gonna cut the CRP grass and make a hay crop out there, so that'll be kind of fun to watch.
Mhm.
And you might be out at that tomorrow.
Wow.
So I go out there and stay. There's an old cabin out there that goes back 75 years that we still use. 75 years ago, quick story, when they drilled oil wells around, the roughnecks in the 1930s didn't get in cars and come back to town. If you drilled a well 25 or 30 miles outside of town, he built cabins for the roughnecks to stay in. And so there was a well drilled in 1935 out on the ranch on Cole's Place in 35, and they built 2 little frame cabins for the roughnecks to live in while they were working there. And we still have one of those cabins. We've dragged it around now. It's halfway up on a mountainside, but it's just a little old frame shack, one-room deal. But we continue to use that, and it's out there right now.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Well, good. I'm glad I satisfied you guys.
Yeah.
You're pretty easy to satisfy.
Well, do you have any just closing comments or anything, or?
No. If you ever need anything else, I'd be happy to see what I could come up with.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.